All right, everybody, I'm back. It's gone a little while. Now I'm back. Went to the electric forest. Before that, I went to the cannabis cup. Um, and that's what we're going to talk about a little bit here today on this opinion piece. I'm doing an opinion piece about an opinion piece. So if you're looking for some breaking news or something, you're at the wrong spot. And I would just like to quickly reintroduce myself again, like I do from time to time. This channel, The Daily Dope, is a show on YouTube, and there's also the Daily Dope Show is also a Twitter page, and there's a Facebook page. I don't really do a whole lot of work on those, but they're there, and you will see me tweet from time to time. Um, I'm just a regular guy. I'm not some kind of journalist, or I don't have a journalism degree. I don't have experience doing news or writing news. I don't write my own copy. I don't. This is all off the cup. I don't even edit these clips, man. Believe me, I wish I did, because sometimes they can suck. But what I do is I am like you, just a person that has learned about cannabis throughout my life, been educated in the field of cannabis, know a lot about cannabis, know the history of it, know the history of prohibition, and yeah, I hope we're rolling. Oh yeah, we don't need that. All right. So, as a person that is a cannabis connoisseur and cannabis knowledge seeker and whatnot, information, I also like to read about what's going on now, and try to figure out where we're at with all this. Today we're talking about the normalization of cannabis, whatever that means to you or to anybody else. To me, there's a couple things that it involves. The first one, obviously, is the stigma. The main one, the big one, that marijuana is bad. Normalizing that seems to be the hardest thing to do. And I think the easiest way to do it is to educate somebody who thinks it's bad firsthand. I mean, otherwise, if they don't have any exposure to marijuana or cannabis or medical marijuana or whatever you want to call it, or whatever it is that they could be exposed to, if they don't have anybody around to look at as an example, then they will form their own opinions about it. Most of these opinions are reinforced with knowledge that has been used for almost a century to demonize marijuana. And this knowledge is all based on falsehoods and scare tactics. This, for a lack of a better word, it's become known as reefer madness, which is to take cannabis and apply other things that you might find in the world of intoxicating substances to cannabis to scare people away from cannabis. For example, the big one these days is drugged driving. Apparently you smoke too many joints, you can go out and crash your car. Do too many dabs. And the marijuana today, of course, is another big piece of their propaganda that they've been using for 20, 40 years, is that the marijuana of today is much stronger than the marijuana from 20, 30 years ago. That's such bullshit. I don't even want to go unpack that one. But, even if marijuana has been bred to have higher THC concentration and less CBD, which is true, that has happened, it doesn't mean that there hasn't always been high THC cannabis around. All right. just because the mainstream people can't get their hands on, the cannabis that has high concentrations doesn't mean it wasn't there. So another normalization type thing going on that I see is it's public use, because acceptance is just, like I said, that one hurdle, like, oh, marijuana is bad. The fact is, the more you look at marijuana, the less that you can support that with, the less evidence that you find. Matter of fact, no evidence. You will not find any evidence to support anything saying marijuana is bad or THC is bad. And of course, you have correlative and anecdotal, I wouldn't call them studies, but stereotypical brain renderings of the guy that smokes a joint and just lays out on the couch all day, flicking through the channels. It's funny. Throughout my life, I've seen a lot of people that do all those activities. That couch potato shit where you just sit around and flick from channel to channel and, don't ever actually watch a show, and you're just sitting there for 8 to 10 hours a day doing this shit. Hardly any of those people ever smoked weed. And if they did, that was just one little side thing that they didn't even really focus on. It was just like, it wasn't to enhance their rotting or whatever you want to call that. But I just don't see that in the world of people that smoke weed. The world of people that smoke weed, they're just doing what everybody else does. And that's a big part of normalizing it too. Is, letting you know that, yes, all these people that you see all the time, every day, that you think are normal, they potentially smoke weed. Because people that smoke weed, they could be from any background, any socioeconomic background. Although, for some odd reason, really rich people don't seem to like marijuana. I have no idea what the fuck that's about. And it's not always true. Nothing's always true. Maybe a couple things here and there. But for the most part, when it comes to drugs and stuff that is medicine, you don't have, like, always true shit. Is it always true that, you're going to find propaganda about marijuana, no matter how legal it becomes? Probably. And that's a sad thing, is we're not going to normalize it like this. What about public use? Well, let's see. Compare it to what? Let's talk about smoking first. For smoking, you have basically something where you smoke weed. It's something that you can do. It's one of the main ways of consuming marijuana for thousands of years that we know of. So the fact that smoking it is a thing has a lot of people like not liking it for whatever reason. They didn't have any problem liking cigarettes because they were making money off cigarettes, but now if it's smoking, it's bad. That's just probably one of those stigmas that's never gonna die, So smoking marijuana in a public place, even 20 years down the road from now, I'm picturing, I don't know, who knows what can happen in the evolution of people's acceptance. But currently, I don't see a world where, sitting at a, restaurant out on the where people are allowed to smoke cigarettes, for example. Now you got like these sections in restaurants that are outdoors, like patios, and you can light up cigarettes out there because it's open air or whatever, and it's 500 feet from a door. I don't think those are even legal in most places with cigarette bans in place, because you still are smoking around employees, and secondhand smoke is considered dangerous. So, let's just say that if you could smoke marijuana like that outdoors, it's always going to have people that are going to be against it, no matter what. That being said, what about things like the Cannabis Cup? We had a situation with the Cannabis Cup back in 2011 in Michigan where, the Cannabis Cup was held in Detroit at a very popular warehouse location that's been used for several dance parties, electronic music parties, other festivals, and marijuana-related stuff like, I don't know, conventions and stuff. So, you know, Bert's warehouse was used, but there was no smoking there. That's pretty crazy. So, all right, without further ado, I'm going to read through this article written by Larry Gabriel of the Metro Times fame, the little Detroit week. Is it weekly or bi-weekly? I believe it's weekly. I used to live there. I should know. But anyway, yeah, it's weekly. So he's a good writer. I like his opinions. He does a lot of opinion pieces, but I mean, he tells you a lot of the shit that you need to know about what's going down. All right. And he lives in Detroit now and came to where I live now, which is Vienna Township, or Clio, otherwise known as, which is basically in the middle of nowhere, about 10 miles north of Flint, Michigan. And so this is like I said, I went to the one in Bert's warehouse and I was like, whoa, what is this shit? No smoking at a cannabis cup. It wasn't very festive, we'll say. So let's just read what he had to say about coming to Clio, and this is his piece about normalizing. It's titled Michigan, How the Cannabis Cup is Helping Make Marijuana the New Normal. And wow. Again, another thing about normalizing is having these kind of celebrations, but as I've been to a couple cannabis cups now, since before there wasn't really a big focus on the music part of it, but then now they had some class act music, and it was a little bit more worth it. But it's basically just a festival full of booths. And if you've been to it one time, it's no longer a surprise or a shock to see things like dab lines, which I'll get into later. So here's his take. He says, I had to walk about a half a mile from where I parked to the entry gate at the Auto City Speedway in Vienna Township from the Midwest Cannabis Cup last weekend. The Auto City Speedway is about a mile from my house, by the way. So anyway, it's normal to walk that distance across vast parking areas when attending big events like concerts, fairs, and I guess car races. Not really. Where I was parked was not even where they would normally park people going to the car races, which the field where they parked for the Cannabis Cup before has never been full because of the races. And also, this Cannabis Cup was much bigger than the one the year before. And especially on Saturday, where 50 Cent and Wu-Tang was the artists, and Nelly was the headliner, that was off the hook. I think there had to be close to 15,000 people there, maybe. A lot for my little town. So anyway, it was the normalization that I felt the most about the Cannabis Cup. As I approached the Speedway on Saginaw Road, I passed a dispensary and a grow shop nearby. A sign said something about the Emerald Triangle, an allusion to the region of North California that produces more marijuana than anywhere else in the country. All right, now we'll stop right there. That's actually called the Green Mile, and it is kind of a triangle because you have Saginaw Road and Dort Highway split, and they go up to this road called Francis Road, so it forms like a triangle. And in that triangle, there's probably about 10 dispensaries at least, and about 3 grow shops. So, you know, we call it the Green Mile around here because that's where it's at. And he goes on to say, but this isn't California. This is a real rural area of Michigan, not far from Flint, and marijuana is normal. Things weren't so normal in 2011 when the first Michigan Cannabis Cup was held in Detroit at Bert's Warehouse Theater. Police showed up on the first day and declared there would be no medicating in the area and maintain a heavy presence the entire weekend, putting a damper on the mood. Yeah, I basically did one walk through and left. I'm sure there were police somewhere at this year's Cannabis Cup, but their presence was subdued as vendors offered samples of their wares to the festival crowd, the dab lines and such. It was huge, with booths offering marijuana as far as the eye could see. There were trimmers being demonstrated and sold. Plant clones were offered. Buds and oils of all kinds were on display for smells and taste. Edibles, too. After all, the Cannabis Cup is a celebration of the best in marijuana. It's hard to give recognition to those who grow the best stuff, make the best oils themselves, and prepare the best edibles. Actually, more than the number of vendors at the Cannabis Cup, I was amazed at the number of categories for awards. Anyway, well, you can read that if you'd like to. It's interesting that although only certified patients were allowed inside, there was still a huge crowd, at least a few thousand Sunday afternoon when I was there. And that's the day I went to, it was Sunday. Even though there was a place to seek certification on site, that couldn't come close to accounting for the mass congregated at the Cup, especially Saturday. I don't know, most people probably, like I knew a few people that went Saturday that didn't go Sunday, so there was probably a lot of that going on. I remember driving by on Saturday. The cars were parked out. The Auto City lot was full. All the parking lots around it were full. People were parking as far as a mile away where there was like a carnival going on. People were paying $5 to pay at the carnival and walk almost a mile to get to the gate. But anyway, there was a signature gathering for the Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol petitions. We'll talk about that more later on another clip. And I'm about to interview somebody from My Legalize, so stay tuned to my channel. Don't diss me out because I only make one video a week or whatever. It's been a busy summer. So he said he ran into Robin Snyder, who is the director of finance for the initiative. We chatted a bit about how normal these kinds of events have become. Later, she hooked me up with Josh Hovey, spokesman for the campaign, and I asked him about the normalization of marijuana. Quote, it's definitely becoming more the mainstream, which is encouraging to see, he says. The Cannabis Cup had music acts people were openly talking about and willing to partake and consume in a setting that is very similar to a beer tent that you might see at Oktoberfest or events in Michigan Brewers Guild hold. There's a culture that's beginning to become public around the state. It's pretty much been that way every time I've ever been to a concert or something. So before the Cannabis Cup wasn't so much of a music venue. This time, when I was there Sunday, it was like nonstop from the time I got there to the time that it closed. There was somebody either on stage or about to be on stage. It just wasn't like that the years before, and so it didn't feel like it was a concert or whatever. So it was a lot. Just you strictly could go around and see all the booths in 1 hour and know what the hell, that was it, That's what legalization efforts are counting on across the country. As cannabis culture spreads, it's not seen as deviant behavior. We've had medical marijuana in place since 2008, Hovey says. As a state, we're getting used to the idea that cannabis is a normal thing. It's not for everybody, and that's okay. Alcohol is not for everybody, but it's nothing to hide, and it shouldn't be forced into the shadows. The organization collected plenty of signatures at the Cannabis Cup. A few days later, Hovey said the numbers weren't in yet, but they were, quote, running ahead of schedule in our collection effort. While the Cannabis Cup is an excellent opportunity for pushing the legalization effort, Hovey doesn't anticipate open marijuana smoking if prohibition is overthrown. Why not? Isn't your organization called Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol? You can drink alcohol in places in public, like at bars and events. So why should it be any different for cannabis? That's kind of weird, especially when his organization is actually named Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol. But anyway, I have a lot of criticisms about that organization, and we'll talk about that in another clip, like I said. Events such as Cannabis Cup, where cannabis products are openly displayed, sold, and used, aren't the projected norm. That's pretty weird, because in Michigan, it seems like those kind of parties have been the norm, especially if you look at the Hash Bash, previous Cannabis Cups at Clio, Michigan. I think there's kind of a taboo about smoking in public overall, tobacco or anything. Sure, there always will be. He says, what we see is a consumption of that, or a continuation of that. When smoking anything in public, you don't get to control whether it goes after it exits your lungs, where it goes after it exits your lungs. I kind of agree with that, but, no. I kind of agree with that. But, there's certain ways that you can make it so it could be consumed in the public. They made way for cigarettes for a long time to be done like that. So the campaign to regulate marijuana like alcohol proposal does not allow for the use of cannabis in public. It's where we think the public is comfortable. Now, that's fine. We didn't expect that to be in the law. And by the way, the law was chock full of a whole bunch of other shit that we didn't expect to see in a law. It is the ballot initiative petition that I'm talking about, the language. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of like saying some of the things that are in the law that I don't think should be in the ballot language. Why would you cherry pick which things that you think should be included in the actual law? And, I don't know. If you look at what they put in there and then they say, oh, we didn't feel like we wanted to put this in there. It's kind of like they had someone telling them what not to put in there. Like they had a list of things that they wanted in, and public consumption of some sort, no matter how highly regulated, was one of them. And they just crossed that one off and said, no, don't even try this one. Because that's how it works, man. You know it is. It's a bit of political sophistication seeing where the public is comfortable. No, it ain't. The public is never going to be comfortable with it. We both know that. So you just got to make it so it's regulated and make it so it can happen. All right, we're going to get done with that. So he says it wasn't that long ago and the majority of the public wasn't comfortable even talking about marijuana, let alone legalizing it. That's, again, part of the normalization. It's no longer normal for folks to hide in the shadows every time they want to use marijuana. I'm not even sure that smoking bud is the norm for marijuana users with all the dabbing and waxing and whatnot going on. What I am sure about is that you will be really hard to make marijuana abnormal again, and that's what hanging out at a cannabis cup can show you. True, I will have to agree with that. So, and here's some pictures from the cup. Yep, there's not much to say. The normalization is continuing to be something that, will happen. And it's a combination of a couple things. It's a combination of, some of these people that don't like it they're really old. I hate to wish death upon them, I don't, but they are going to be out of the public sphere in a matter of years. And the generation that grew up in the 60s, they're about to be them old people. And most of them don't give a shit about marijuana. They would rather it be legal than not legal. They would rather use it than use some of these pharmaceuticals that they're going to end up on in the old folks' home or whatever. And overall, it will be normalized through education and people seeing it. And to be honest, I think one of the biggest things that's going to help recreational marijuana, which shouldn't even be a word, is medical marijuana, which also shouldn't really be a thing. But medical marijuana is what gets the normalization on the ground to more people than ever before, because everybody knows somebody that uses medical marijuana now. And they see that it works. They see that that person is happy and their condition is improving. This was the crowd at the Bone Thugs and Harmony set, as you can see. Yeah, that's basically, in a nutshell, how normalization will unfold. Is it begins and ends with people knowing somebody that is normal that uses it. Before, it was probably just a whole bunch of bad PR that continues to coincide with people that don't know anything about it. So I don't know, I'm just babbling. But the police is the last thing, the law. Like, we normalize everything else. Marijuana is such a benign substance that you might as well take all legal penalties out of it. That would be the best solution. We all know that. It's never going to happen, but That would be the best idea. Stay tuned.